Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, namaskaram, vanakkam. Welcome to a weekly Zoom show on the Sunday, 20th of November 2022. This is show number 47 in this year, and we propose to put up more shows as we go along. Well, this evening we are joined by Ms. Geeta Iyer, all the way from Mumbai, and she has got an interesting topic to talk to us. She'll be talking to us about being mortal and living well. And I'm sure she's going to give us good tips to have a life full of wellness, both in terms of health and possibly in terms of finance also. But I'm not really sure about the financial part. Definitely, she'll give us more tips on being healthy as possible. Welcome to the show, Geeta Iyer. Well, I'm really thankful to my childhood friend Sujata Krishnamurthy, who's likely to join from Michigan in US for introducing Gita to us. Well, as usual, we begin the show with the prayer followed by the guest introduction. And then after the guest speaker takes over, and on her completion, we'll have an open session wherein we all can put our views, observation, comments, feedback, even ask questions with the guest. We're more than happy to answer. And finally, we'll wrap it up with the summary of the talk and vote of thanks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's kickstart the show. Coming up first is a prayer by Mrs. Nirmala Gopalakrishnan, who's joining us after a very long break. Welcome to the show, Nirmala Mami. Kindly unmute and go ahead.
மணிகண்டனே உன்மலரடி பணிந்தேன் மனமுவந்தென்னை காப்பாய் சரணம் ஐயப்ப மணிகண்டனே உன்மலரடி பணிந்தேன் மனமுவ காப்பாய் சரணம் ஐயப்ப மணிகண்டனே உன் மலரடி பணிந்தே மனமுவந்தென்னை காப்பாய் சரணம் ஐயப்ப மணிகண்டனே சபரிகிரி தண்டில் வாழும் தர்மசாத்தாவே சபரிகிரி தண்டில் வாழும் தர்மசாத்தாவே சபரிகிரி தண்டில் வாழும் தர்மசாத்தாவே அபலயம் எங்களுக்கு அபயம் அளித்து காப்பாய் சபரிகிரி தண்டில் வாழும் தர்மசாஸ்தாவே அபலயம் எங்களுக்கு அபயம் அளித்து காப்பாய் மணிகண்டனே உள் மலரடி பணிந்தே மனமுவந்தென்னை காப்பாய் சரணம் ஐயப்ப மணிகண்டனே பங்குனி பூர்ணிமை உத்திர நட்சத்திரத்தின் திருநாளில் அவதரித்த ஹரிஹர புத்திரனே பங்குனி பூர்ணிமை உத்திர நட்சத்திரத்தின் திருநாளில் அவதரித்த ஹரிஹர புத்திரனே மங்களமூர்த்தியே ஐயப்பா மங்களமூர்த்தியே கேரள தவமணியே மங்களமூர்த்தியே கேரள தவமணியே வேண்டுவோர் விரும்பும் வரங்கள் அருள்பவரே மணிகண்டனே உன்பலரடி பணிந்தேன் மனமுவந்தென்னை காப்பாய் சரணம் ஐயப்ப மணிகண்டனே.
Thank you, Nirmala Mami. That was a perfect start to the evening show. கார்த்திகை மாசத்துல ஐயப்பனை பத்தி பாடி ரொம்ப அழகா ஷோவை ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணி விட்டேன். You can sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the show. Well, the element of fear is inherent in all of us, in all of the human beings, and even also in non-human beings. But how do we manage and control the fear? This is precisely what the last week guest speaker, Dr. Sudha Srikanth, joined us from Atlanta, US, told us. Let's listen to what she said last.
right? So, what exactly is fear? Why do we have fear? And as what Swaminathan Mama just mentioned, that fear is not something which is there just now. It is over a period of time, it builds up, right? And from the early years, like even we can recollect our parents, our grandparents telling us that if something goes wrong or they don't listen, if children would not listen to their elders, they would say that omachi paathan iruka seriya soll pannalena poi sonnena kannu kuttippuduva. Okay, so these are things I don't know if you have heard it, but it is a general general way of disciplining the children in one way.
Going ahead, we come into the next segment of introduction of the guest. Well, Geeta needs no introduction. She was with us in July, maybe on 18th of July, to be very precise, when she gave us an excellent account of her experience taking care of her father who was affected with dementia. That was a very interesting session, and we also learned a lot from her. This evening, she's got a very new subject to tell us. Let's look at her profile first. Well, Geeta has the MBA Finance from Michigan State University, USA. She worked in the US with multinational companies as a consultant, implementing financial systems for over 20 years. My goodness, that's a long time. Then she had to relocate. She moved to Mumbai, leaving behind her career, illustrious career, and home in the US. And this was primarily to take care of her father, who was in his 90s and had started showing signs of dementia. And she wanted to be able to provide full-time care that he needed as his Alzheimer's progressed. Where in the past 4 years, her primary focus has been caring for the elderly parents. Well, over a period of time, doing this, she has also become a passionate advocate of dementia patients and caregivers and provide information on a topic that is widely misunderstood. Well, that's just about a short profile of our guest speaker this evening. I'm sure she'll have more to tell us about, life full of wellness. Well, Geeta, it's your time now. We'll all have a mic in mute status so that we do not disturb the thought process of the speaker. Now, on her completion, we'll have an open session. Geeta Iyer, the floor is all yours now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Subramaniam, for inviting me again. And thanks to all of you. Yeah, so I just want to issue a disclaimer right at the beginning, because this is the first time I am talking about on this topic. So it's being mortal and living. But it's been a constant theme in my thoughts the last 4 or 5 years, since I became a full-time caregiver for my father and now my mother. My mother is 93 and I care for her. So I have had to, my father passed away 2 years ago. And so I think many of you, I'm just going to share my reflections, what I've thought about, and some of the lessons that I've learned. I don't think I'm an expert on this topic. So, in terms of giving tips or anything, I think all of you, it'll be great if you all share your thoughts as well, because this is our mortality and just wellness. These are topics that probably most of us think about. What makes us happy and so on. So when I think about mortality, I'm going to expand the definition a little bit. We usually think about death. So in a sense, for me, when my father, his physical death occurred in 2020. But the dementia, a lot of dementia caregivers say that we lose them twice. So he died before that. So he ceased to be the father I always knew. So for me, the definition, for this conversation, I'm going to say mortality is more than just a physical death. And I think in that when we look at things that way, right from our childhood, there are so many changes. So we cease to be a child and we move into adolescence and then adulthood. So each is in a way a form of death. We cannot go back to the previous stage, but it brings new opportunities and new abilities and disabilities. So each stage, goes like that. And so I think, in short, I'm going to say when we are well and happy, when we make the most of the opportunities in each phase of our lives, and acceptance is key. So we accept our age and our abilities and what we are, our limitations, and then we can think about what we can still do. I mean, that is how I have had to look at life. So, for example, the first part of my father's dementia, I knew very little about it. So for me, it was very hard, and there were a lot of struggles in terms of, there was a lot of misunderstanding for me, because I would ask my father to do something or not do something, and he would do it, and I couldn't comprehend why. I did not know that he was incapable of processing that instruction, and he was incapable of making the right decision. So when then his dementia progressed, and he was unable to do many of the normal routine things. And here was a man who was a very independent person, and he had done so much in his life for us and for everybody around him, and he was not even able to take care of himself. So once I accepted and I stopped expecting, excuse me, him to be what he was before, then I think we were able to move forward in a better way, and it became a much smoother ride for us. Excuse me. Should have gotten some water. So once that acceptance that he is not going to become better, that there is no cure for his dementia, then I started focusing on what he could still do. And so there was this mortality, the end of what he had been. So that had ended. And this was my father, new version of my father, and he didn't know who I was, but still I knew him. And there were still things he could enjoy. And I started recording moments of joy, creating moments of joy, and spending time with him. And he still could enjoy his life in many different ways. If you don't mind, I'm going to pause it. I'm going to get some water. Is that okay?
Please go ahead.
Sorry about that. That came out of nowhere.
Not at all. Carry.
So that is kind of, I think now I keep that, it's at the back of my mind in all situations. So there are, I think it applies to all of us. It doesn't have to be dementia. It could be anything that we were able to do before and we are no longer able to do. It could be somebody that we love and we're caring for, what they were before and what they're no longer able to do. But that doesn't have to be the end of our living well and happiness. So mortality aside, we can still live well. And I think that is something, an important lesson to be learned. So there are certain decisions that we made that I want to talk about for my father. So it was all well-intentioned. So in the US, I moved to India in 2018 with my parents. At that time, my parents had been with me for 4 years. And I don't think my father really wanted to live in the US. It was something that we insisted on and we pressured them to move. And also he was a very flexible person that way. He tried to be flexible because he also realized he had reached a stage where he couldn't live alone. So then he had a series of health issues in 2015, several ICU visits. And so this was a physically fit man. I had to do very little for him. And suddenly there were many emergency hospital visits. So he had a heart condition, which was chronic, and the cardiologist that was treating him strongly recommended that he have a valve replacement, aortic valve replacement. So because before that, one of the ICU visits, which we thought he would not make it, he came out of it, but again, the doctors went through enormous measures. They took enormous measures to treat him, and in the process, he lost his hearing. So I want to mention that because when we are taking care of an elderly or any person, sometimes we go through every possible treatment that is there, and the consequences can be more than what we bargained for. So one of the contributing factors for dementia is hearing loss. So that he completely lost his hearing, and that got him depressed, and that led to his depression and some of the prelude to his dementia. So coming back to the aortic valve replacement, we finally yielded. We asked the doctor, would you do it? Will you, would you consider it for your own father? This was an Indian cardiologist, by the way. And she said, yes, emphatically, yes, he will have several good years, and his quality of life will improve, and so on. So my sister herself is a doctor, and we waited many months, and we postponed the decision, and we finally decided to go ahead with the surgery. So my father was 92 at this time. And at this time, he trusted us. He didn't really, we had to fill a lot of forms, and I had to get his consent. But I don't think he understood everything. He kind of, he just trusted us to make the right decision. And the surgery itself was a huge success because it was non-invasive. There was nothing, it wasn't cut open or anything. And the recovery was quick. So one good thing, what the doctor said was he never went back to the ICU again. But then came the Alzheimer's dementia. So looking back, would we have done that surgery? I think no. But what would that mean? My father would have probably gone sooner. So it is kind of, do you want to prolong somebody's life? And it was in a way suffering for him. Not suffering for us, I would have taken care of him, but for us too, but more for him. And what would quality of life meant for what would it have meant for my father? So for him, somebody who was independent and to not even know who his family was, like there were times he would cry. He said, what kind of life is this? When he had moments of cognition, he would say, I don't even know my wife and children. So, so this was a decision that we made, but I think this is very common. I mean, at that point of time, that was the best decision we knew to make. And we took the advice of a professional, and we waited a long time, and we considered it, and physically it did help him. So sometimes this is just, I'm going to throw it out there without any research. In advanced, in really old people, in the 90s, if you're giving general anesthesia, they say you shut off the brain, and it doesn't come back properly, when they're recovering. So there may be, we always like, did it cause his dementia? Maybe he would have got it still, but maybe he would have not lived that long if the surgery hadn't happened. So I just want to, I wanted to give this example as a context to some of the things that we will talk about. I suppose fast forward now, in March, my mother, she's like I said, 93. She doesn't have dementia, but she's severely physically disabled. So until March, She was able to walk around. She was able to do a lot of things, she was not able to do a lot of things. And when I think about living well, I think about her, because she's a very content person and she's a very accepting person. And she doesn't complain. And I ask her sometimes, Amma, உனக்கு அங்க எங்க போகணும்னு ஆசையா இல்லையான்னு. எனக்கு ஒரு ஆசை இல்லை, அந்த கோவிலுக்கு போகணுமா, எல்லாம் போறதெல்லாம் போயாச்சு, I'm happy. So she's a very content person. And but I know there are a few things that make her happy. She's happy when people come and visit and talk to her. And she enjoys certain sweets, and I let her have whatever it is. She enjoys some shows. She enjoys watching cricket. She enjoys watching tennis. Konja Shankara TV Papa, religious, and she likes that Patti Mandram. So there are things that she enjoys still. But in March she had an episode. We thought she almost she was ready to go. And she was ill for a couple of months, and we were praying that she should go. We wanted her suffering to end. And after my experience with my father, we are very open about talking, about these things. I know a lot of families, a lot of people are hesitant about talking about death and mortality. And I would sit with her and I ask her, Baimarka, are you afraid of death? And tell me what you're feeling. And she will say, I've lived a full life. I'm very, then I always used to ask my father also, and I asked my mother, no, are you happy? Are you happy? And she'll say, I'm very happy. And so one thing she says, she's also satisfied that, and it is important for me to hear this from her, as she says, Namma appaava nanna paathundo. So for her definition, so when I analyze that statement, for her, she has she didn't want him to live longer, and because it would mean prolonging his suffering. But for her, her definition of being well for my father was taking care of him at home. Our hospital, he didn't die in a hospital with a lot of tubes and a lot of pokes and all that. And he was surrounded by people who cared for him. So that is her definition of wellness. So for me, I think that has been my definition as well. For my mom, when she went to the hospital, this time I had to hospitalize her. And one of the things we did was, straight to hospital, they directly want you to put them in ICU. Nera ICU la. So I had contacted, somehow I thought of calling a doctor that I've gotten to know. She's a palliative care physician, Dr. Geeta Iyer. I think you should invite her as a speaker at some point. I called her and I said, Amma, hospital. So she said, what are they doing in the ICU? So I said, I don't know. So she said, why do you want her to be in the ICU? Put her in a room, because at least you can be with her. So these are decisions when I talk about wellness, even when you're a patient, how can you make them feel comfortable? Because the patients have a lot of fears. And when they're alone, they're without their family, you don't know what they're going through. So I suggested to my our physician, can we just put her in a room? And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. And that was okay. And then on the 2 naala stabilize anapram, she needed oxygen, and we all thought she was not going to make it. Then we pressured the doctors, she's stable, can we just give her the same care at home? Because all we were doing was giving her oxygen, and we were giving her nebulization she had breathing issues. So we shifted her after 3 days in the hospital. And then they suggested putting a feeding tube, because the whole thing started with her aspirating. So she vomited at home before she was hospitalized, and she went into her lungs, and she was unable to breathe. Her oxygen dropped. So that's how she went to the hospital. So they were very careful about how to feed her. So she was able to eat food orally, but they still, People are hospital, they want to do this, they want to do that, they want to do a lot of things. Some things not necessary. So we said, no, we don't want to traumatize her. She is able to eat. So we will make sure she eats what she can. We will be very careful and no problem. We don't want to do any of that. So we also said no resuscitation. We don't want to put her on a ventilator, none of that. So we brought her home, and Ammata, we have discussed this openly. Amma, next time I will try to not take you to the hospital. We will, these are open conversations that I have had with my mother, which I couldn't have with my father. Because she has expressed what wellness is for her. What she wants. She wants to be at home. She wants to be with us. She doesn't want to be in a hospital. She doesn't want us to prolong her life and treat every problem that comes up. So there are minor infections, we treat it. We don't do a lot of poking and anything that causes her discomfort. So now she's on a catheter that we have to do because she will be on a for urine. And so there are things that we do, we keep her comfortable. So that is in the context. So I have accepted, both my mother and I, we have accepted that the mortality. So that I think what I want to convey here is both in the case of my father and with my mother, once we accept that it is inevitable, and when I define mortality, not beyond death, that is everything and most things in life are temporary. It lasts, just like I said, childhood and adolescence and adulthood, and then you age. Every day you're aging, and it brings about changes. Once you accept that, and what you can still live with all those limitations that these changes may bring, I think it is very freeing. It makes your thinking and heart light, and it allows you to enjoy what you can still do. And that has been my experience. Once I accepted the fact of the condition, I was able to enjoy my time with my father and now my mother. So I want to, I just introduce a concept here without naming it. So I mentioned to you that with my mother, I wanted to bring her home and I wanted to treat her at home, and I did not want to go through extraordinary measures. So basically I wanted a palliative approach. So I had become familiar with both palliative care and hospice care in the US. So this was, I didn't know a lot about it. I still don't know a lot about it, but I know the concept, and I recommend it to a lot of people. So US generally, hospice care, I don't want everybody to think palliative care is death. It is not. It is it basically takes care of the overall well-being of a person. So it is basically an interdisciplinary approach. So it's like a special plan of care that is meant to relieve pain, provide comfort and dignity, and improve the quality of life of the person you're caring for. So when we talk about palliative care, we talk about not only the quality of life, but also the quality of death. So let's talk about life first. So how they're living, pain management is one, and then preserving dignity. So when we talk about living well, there are three things that I think are important: liberty, control, and dignity. Everybody wants this. So liberty and control, I want control over my life, and I want to make decisions for my life. So how much we can do that, I think changes as we age. But dignity is central to everything. So palliative care is something that focuses on caring it thinks about all aspects of a person's life, and also not just the person with a condition, but also the family members, the caregivers, everybody. There's psychological needs, their financial needs, all aspects of care, the social needs, and all of that. So for me, an example of that is when my father was, the last few days, 2 months of his life were excruciating. He had an untreatable urinary UTI, urinary tract infection. So I had no idea. And usually most caregivers are, like, we don't have all the answers, and something like dementia is very complicated, and, you don't know how to, and a lot of caregivers, they have many other challenges too. They have a family to care for, they have financial constraints, so they don't have the help they need. So for me, I didn't know how to take care of my father's pain. I knew that in the US, hospice potrpa. In a hospice potranda or palliative care. If in hospices, if you have a chronic ailment and that is physically that's life limiting or life threatening, but you have only about 6 months to live. If it is known, it is hospice. But palliative care can be not necessarily they're going to die. It could be they could live many years, but they still have a physical life impairing condition. It could be a stroke, or it could be cancer, or it could be in many mental illnesses. It could be any of these things. So where the family is drained and you have to make decisions, you have to manage symptoms, and you need help. So I wanted my father's pain to go away from the UTI. I did not know that doctors did not have any answer to that. In case, he needed an IV antibiotic, but that was impossible with this. And I was very clear I was not going to hospitalize him, and they would have restrained him. I mean, this is again, thinking about his dignity and what my father would have wanted. So he would have had to be put in restraints, and we would have had to go through all that, pump his body with medicines forcibly. Atla, if it was a one-time thing, we could have given it, but he would have needed a course for a whole week. So I was part of a dementia care support group, and I just posted in desperation, is there anything called palliative care in India? So I got one answer. I got a reference to Dr. Rajan, and she was a godsend. She called me and she said, we will have a conversation about this. And then the day we were supposed to have a conversation, my father passed away. So my regret is I did not contact her. So, he suffered. So to talk about palliative care, it is really, India, especially pain management is something that is poor. There is not enough, the doctors themselves, the usual doctors that you go to, like administration of, he would have needed morphine or something. So when I did mention morphine to our family doctor, and there was like, no way, it's like that kind of response, they're shocked, and it's like a no thing. Whereas if you go to a palliative care doctor, they have the authority and license to administer it, and they have enough knowledge about it, how much for the patient, if the patient needs it, and what can help. And I think that is where a palliative approach is needed, where a lot of times the traditional doctors are not able to address some of these extremely painful situations. So what is palliative care? It prioritizes care beyond cure. So that is what it is. So it's an interdisciplinary approach that aims at improving the quality of life of both terminally ill patients and their caregivers. It provides physical, emotional, psychosocial, spiritual, and rehabilitative interventions. So India, it is only about 2% of the people have access to palliative care. So it's slowly coming in. It is a discipline that people can study. In fact, the doctor I talked about, She was a pulmonologist and she moved over to palliative care when her own father became ill. And she said, when her father became ill, even though she was a doctor, she felt helpless and she needed support from neighbors and friends and a whole lot of people, psychologists. And so you need that kind of support, and that is what a palliative approach provides. And so the first thing is there is a lot of stigma around it because people think palliative care now, oh, no, death. So India alone, only 2% have access to palliative care. The global average is about 14%. Kerala, it's most advanced. They have a formal policy, about 26%. So there is something called quality of death index. And India, that is basically how much do they suffer? How do they, are they in the comfort of their home with their people? And because medical, ನಮ್ಮ medical doctors are trained to treat the conditions. So the book that I'm reading right now, I just want to show that to you. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. He talks about it. He's a medical doctor. So he says, I learned about a lot of things in medical school, but mortality is not isn't one of them. So this is a doctor speaking. Textbooks had nothing about aging, frailty, and dying, the process, how people experience the end of their lives, and how it affects those around them. The purpose of medical school was to teach how to save lives, not how to tend to their demise. And he also talks about how doctors, their identity is that they're able to, it comes from the fact that they're able to save lives. They're able to fix problems. But there's only a small percentage of problems that they're able to solve. They're not able to solve a lot of problems, and then they have no answers. And they're not able to help the patients in those difficult cases. They don't know how to communicate with them. So generally, in the hospital, what they do is they keep treating. They'll tell you, I have seen this in my own family. One of my cousins died young from cancer. She died at the age of 55. And so they will say, oh, innoru pudu medicine irukku, innoru pudu treatment irukku. But all of these treatments, there is no definite answer. They'll say, you can live another several years, but it will be a lot of suffering. So this is the quality of death, because the person is dying. But what is the quality of death? So there are decisions to be made where you consider the dignity of the patient. Just today, I had a conversation with one of my relatives, and her father also died of pancreatic cancer. So I asked her, how did you decide? She said, she sat down with her father, and she's herself a doctor. And she said, I told him that you're not going to make it. And they put him in hospice care, but the hospice they would come home. And they would come home. So what that means is they're only treating the symptoms. So they're symptoms of pain, and the madri conditions which you are not equipped to do, but they're not going to do anything, no chemo, no radiation, none of that. So, but keeping the focus is you're in the comfort of your home. And then you manage their pain with whatever measures, morphine, whatever, and then you make the most of your time with that person. Have conversations if they enjoy music, that. So for that person that is living well, you embrace the mortality, and then your living well is respecting their dignity and not letting them suffer anymore. And yes, I think nariya problem, a lot of people, what they struggle with is they feel like if we don't do one more thing, we are abandoning them. நம்ம இது ஒண்ணு கூட பண்ணலாமே, ஒரு மெடிசின் கூட போடலாமே, பண்ணலாமே, இதுக்கு ஒரு சான்ஸ், இதுல ஏதாவது மிராக்குலஸா சரியாயிடுத்துனா என்ன ஆகும்? I think it's very understandable because we want them to be with us. But really, to love them sometimes is to let them go and not let them suffer. So in a way, that is what my own experience. I know it is harder when the person is younger. In my father's case, was 96 when he died. My mother is 93. But no matter, we have all seen that. I just had another death, a neighbor who passed away at 53. And they decided not to, it was a very rapidly progressing cancer, and they decided not to do radiation, none of that. And she passed away in 2 months. And so this is, you can go this way, that way. And I think at the core of it is, again, respecting the dignity of the person and maximizing the quality of life for that person. And what is quality of life? I think it's a subjective thing. We all of us have to think about it for ourselves. What would it be if I had only 1 year to live, or 2 years to live, or 5 years to live? What would I do? What would I like to do most? But listen to music every day, visit a friend, or go to the temple. If I'm not able to go, if I'm homebound, if I'm in bed, still that has a definition. What can you do? There are still things that you can enjoy. I think that is what we need to think about, and that's what I have been thinking about. I mean, this is what I believe. So one more, I want to end with one more topic is. There is this thing called living will. We all, when my father approached, before he moved to the US and before his dementia even, he wrote a will. And there were still challenges for me. So I think one of the things Mr. Subramaniam when he approached me, he said I could talk about my challenges moving here. It is not a big topic. I didn't want to talk about it because there are challenges moving anywhere. There are challenges with change. There are challenges with growing 1 year older. So for me, and the way I look at life is India la challenges irukku, US la challenges irukku. People think it's almost 5 years since I moved. I don't really, do you miss the US? I don't think about it. For me, right now, I have a priority. I don't even go out of Bombay that much. I don't leave my mother alone. Because for me, I want to maximize the time I want to have with my mother. I have full-time help, so I can go out. I can enjoy my life. So there were conversations that we had with my father, like he wrote a will, and with my mother, like we don't have a formal living will written, but I have asked her, like, what would you like us to do in my next time in the Mario episode, Vanda? What would you like to do? So one of the things that for me, I think about it, my sister who is in her early 70s, she has health issues. She is putting together a living will. So that basically is how you want to be treated if you have a medical condition. So, so the living will is a written record of a person's wishes that will help the nominated persons or your family to carry out the person's wishes at the appropriate time without any guilt. Okay, so you can state preferred priorities. This means those things that they wish or prefer to have towards the end of their life. Example, aspects like their preferred place of care and death, whether they want to be in a hospital or they want to be in at home. Nature of the treatment, do you want to have a ventilator put in, or a feeding tube, or antibiotics, or so basically refusals, it is preferable to be clear about binding refusals. This means the components of medical care that they wish or prefer not to have towards the end of their lives. It involves avoidance of IV, antibiotics, blood products, hospitalization, ICU admissions, oxygen, dialysis, etc. And that you don't want invasive medical care. So these are some of the things, and it is good for, I have seen in the last 4 or 5 years that people of all ages, mortality is at all ages. It is, every stage of our life is temporary in a way. We leave behind a stage and we move in, and the ultimate end also can come anytime, unexpectedly. Sometimes we know it is coming, sometimes we don't. But I think it would be a good thing that we do for our loved ones to clearly state our preferences. Because in Appa Madri case, 89, 90, 91, he was okay. Then suddenly he couldn't make any of those decisions. So Nanga Pandradha, avarku would he have liked? Would he have not liked? So things can change like that. So I know it's a very uncomfortable conversation, and sometimes family members don't like. Ipo எங்க அம்மா வந்து she says no, I don't want. She tells me I don't want you to take me to hospital. I don't want you to treat me if this happens. I may want her with me for another 5 years, and I may not want to do it. But I think it is good to have those conversations put in place. So when the time comes and they have to make those decisions, they know what our wishes would have been, what we would like them to do. And so they can do it without guilt. Also, for me, some of the challenges I faced were power of attorney, banking related and all. They were not huge, but there were some annoying things that happened. So it is good to put in place, clearly write down number property transfers would be smooth. I had some challenges, even though my father had clearly written a will. It was pretty simple. So it is good to put in place a power of attorney and so forth. Excuse me. So those are some of the key things I wanted to discuss. So for me, the topic today, it's a new topic for me also, but it's just something that I've thought about in my mind, but I have never really discussed this in an open public forum. And I know, Mr. Subramaniam, you knew that I was thinking I was going to talk about dementia again. That's the only topic I talk about. So this is kind of new for me. And so I just spoke from my heart, and it was kind of whatever came to my mind. So I didn't come with real tips, but I just from my experience, what mortality means. And once, I think the core of it for me is we accept it, we embrace it, and it's happening every day for us. We are leaving behind the person we were yesterday and we are today. And we focus on today, what we can still do. We can still do many things, and that is living well, what we enjoy doing. And then there is some planning required once as we age, like I mentioned, discussing with our loved ones how make their decisions easier if we are at a stage we are not able to make them. And that's about it. So I would love to hear from all of you what your thoughts are on some of these topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Geeta Madam, for your excellent presentation. Though it was a very short one, I really enjoyed it. But before I open up the session, I'd like to state 2 points. The first is you mentioned about Dr. Rajan, with whom you have been interacting, and you
Rajam.
Rajam.
Dr. Rajam.
Okay. You wanted us to invite her for a speech. We'll do that. You can share her phone number with me. I can just contact with her and get her on the show. Number 1. Number 2, despite the best medical attention available, despite the best doctors available, despite the best medicines available, despite the best hospital available, well, whatever is to happen will definitely happen. Doctors cannot prolong somebody's life just like that. It all boils down to one issue called destiny or karma, which we say karma. If a person is destined to live for n number of years, he will live till n number of years, not a second less. And if a person is destined to live for n number of years, he will not live more than n number of years. This is all pre-decided. Medical attention is only, facilitating the person to move to that destination. And I hope others also would have something to tell you. Let's open up the session, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, are you able to hear?
Yes.
Very lovely subject, and very, what you said, you spoke from the experience, so it is more convincing rather than quoting from the books and other things. Actually, it's palliative care you are telling. It is not that much popular in India, like in US and other Western countries. Yes, But for that, I would say that basically we prepare from young age about the death and other things by classical studies. You take the Tirukural, நெருளன் உளனொருவன் இன்றில்லை என்னும் பெருமை உடைத்து உலகு. A fellow who was very good and hale and hearty yesterday, he is no more today. That is the funniest part of that, that whole, when he said in a very sarcasm, it means the true nature of the fatality. It can come to anybody at any time, and be prepared for that. There is another thing, and that Vedanta also in a nutshell it say, if you sleep in this body and rise up next day in the same body, it is a birth. If you sleep in this body and rise up in another body, is a death. Death is not that fearful element in the sense, like you are changing a old dress to new one. You are changing that. Your soul is permanent, it ever travels, and it take a new body, so that to that extent it is a welcome. So they mentally prepare you for the death in the sense, death is not something catastrophic. Only thing, you leave it to get a good next birth. So long you have a belief in next birth, which have been proved also scientifically, the rebirth is a real thing happening. You know, people recollecting the old memories and everything. I read some book also. A lady could recollect about 100 plus her earlier births, and all of them proved to be right. So instead of doctors were, as Subramania was telling, they can only make you to just facilitate moving to that ultimate destination, but they are the be all end all to save your life. To the extent, once you are aged, and it's a beyond that his recovery is beyond sort of a thing, it is better to keep them at the comfort of the home and give them all the comforts. What is a big fun in putting them in ICU and with all the tubes on and dying in the hospital? So similar thing happened to my father. Sorry, I'm just going as a lecturer because it's a personal experience I could recollect. My father was in a diabetic coma in the hospital. So he had a multiple complication like high BP, kidney problem, and other things. No, doctors were trying with a lot of medicines. And last thing, they want to give a blood transfusion. He was in a coma stage. When somebody visited, they said, Mr. KB, you are going to, they are giving you a blood transfusion. They are going to rejuvenate you, and you will be a new person tomorrow. To that, my father replied in the coma, what is the big fun in my getting a rejuvenated life? I already lived my life. Why putting all these tubes and other things? And he is basically, he's a very traditionalist, and he will not even take food outside. To him, taking the blood of mixed blood with from the blood bank and this thing is the last thing to have to extend his life. He is mentally prepared to leave this world. So my mother also used to say that Chitragupta எங்கேயோ என்னோட சீட்டை தொலைச்சிட்டான் போல் இருக்கு தேடின்னு இருக்கான் அப்படிம்பா. அராய்சி மரணம் சொல்லிட்டு she but lived 100 and just passed on her thing in my lap without any sort of discomfort or this thing, telling Ramanama. So that whole generation, they know when they enjoy the life, they enjoy the life like anything. When the time comes to for retirement, the Vanaprastha life daily they lived and mentally prepared. To some extent, I will say, living in India, we have our values, we have our all sort of teachings. So palliative care come naturally to us rather than induced. Anyway, I would like to know more about dementia. Looking forward to another lecture from you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you. So, but palliative care, I don't think culturally, I mean, I see that in India, people are not aware of it because when for example, my father was suffering, asked the doctor about, can we do some pain alleviation? I mentioned morphine, and that would have helped him, and that was completely, they were unaware of it. So there is, what this book that I talk about, Being Mortal, he says it needs to be not a separate discipline. Even in the West, it's growing. It needs to be integrated with, so you can have regular medical treatment, but you will have alongside, because when you have a terminal condition, or it maybe death is not in the near future, but there is a lot of struggle and unknown, decision making involved, and you need a team of experts, and you need a counseling. You need, see, in India, people are resistant to things like counseling. The people think, oh, enna depression, but sometimes you do need someone to guide you and an expert to help you. So in the madri extreme situations, when they come, how to deal with it, it does help when you have a team like that. And see, even I listened to another talk today on palliative care. It was a TED talk by Dr. Chitra. It's on YouTube, and she was saying in how it is developed in Kerala, and it's a team of doctors and nurses, medical professionals, but also a team of volunteers. So what they do is even taking the patient to the hospital, they help you with all those decisions, financial decisions. They kind of, because you're not left alone with those things. Idu eppadi pandrathu, na eppadi doctor ta poven, who will take me, those kinds of things. So it's a lot of, and even Dr. Rajam, she said when she was dealing with her father's death, she said she was lost. So when it comes to those kinds of situations, everybody needs a team and a network. Yeah, that can help you.
You mentioned about your father undergoing surgery for aortic valve replacement at 92. Well, that was in US. I don't know how many in India would dare to do that, even the doctors or the patients. Well, the doctors would come on their own and say, well, the patient will not survive. He will not go beyond the operation table.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of situation that we are in. Anyway,
actually, there was a specific reason why I gave that example, because in Appa case, the doctor, she was an Indian doctor. And yes, the medical technology has advanced to the level that she was categorical. She said, "Enga appa na pannuve," and he will have me. And he did. My father never had to go to the ICU again till he died. We did not need to take him to the hospital. But at what cost? It probably had consequences that we were not aware of. So I don't know if you evlo verku Hindi theriyum theriyala. I wanted to in the movie Anand Anandla Rajesh Khanna says, "Zindagi badi honi chahiye, lambi nahi." I think it's very profound. So enga appa 4 வருஷம் இருந்தா, அந்த 4 வருஷத்துல without knowing anybody, how much suffering he would have gone through, evlo bayam irundirukum. So that is the reason I wanted to give that example. I don't think we would have done that surgery.
You made a very valid point. There was an Indian doctor in US, not in India. That makes a difference.
It was nice hearing Geeta madam about talking about dementia. I would cite the case of my father. He passed away in the year 2006. And 2 years before that, and he was 85 years at that point of time in 2006. For 2 years, he had Alzheimer, and Alzheimer was not even, common in India. And leave alone, there was no documentation available on treatment for quite some time before that. Last 2 years, from the age of 83 onwards, when he started having this kind of a problem, what were noticeable was, he used to go under the bed and with his legs lift the cot. Something which we can't imagine. And after that, he would cry like a baby for next 15 hours, 20 hours also, because the body was aching. Then there were instances when he would eat the food and then, throw the plate at my mother, which he has never ever done in his lifetime. These were the early indications that there was something which was going wrong with him. Now, this created such a situation that we had to take care of him. The only two alternatives in front of me was either take care of him or leave him to his fate. Somehow, I couldn't accept the second option, so we tried our best. And more than that, at the age of 83, developed psoriasis. Now, prior to that, what happened, I should make a mention because I don't want people to get scared. He was working as a secretary of the Press Trust of India for 50 long years, 50. And those were the days when they used to record meetings. He used to write with the hand, and those were stored as records for the company's, decisions, precedences, everything. And Press Trust of India being owned by so many newspapers, every general manager would be coming from the journalism field. And after retirement, the next GM kept on extending his services. I will be very, very frank enough to tell 5 general managers retired from his age of 60 till 74. And at 74, my father denied the facility of a car with a driver and said, I am coming here for a few hours and for that I won't take a car. That's the time I put a stop to it, saying that now he wouldn't be able to travel by public, but they were willing to send vehicle, driver, everything. But when he took such a decision and stood on his principles, I couldn't help it. And then, we really closed him. And he had through him, because in his life, his PTI, his office was the sole thing. My observation is that thereafter, slowly he started withdrawing and his interests were very, very, very limited and he wouldn't really involve himself. And that led to a stage of his Alzheimer, I believe. And from the age of 82 till he passed the age of 85, trust me, we had to face such a kind of situation that challenges were about medical treating him, and second thing was psychologically. Now I'll tell you a couple of instances how we tried and managed. He used to insist on going to the native place. We used to collect an old railway ticket, put it into his pocket, and then he would get pacified. Otherwise, for 5 hours, he will sit and cry, saying that I want to go and see my ancestral house. Ma'am, then there were situations when, he used to call me a thief, saying that I kept away all his money. I don't have 1 rupee in my, we used to put a 10 rupee note in his pocket. He used to feel so satisfied. Yes. My God, the situations were so different. But let me tell you, today, there was a point of time I just threw up my career. And I said, if I got an opportunity to serve him, this is now and never ever. And today, I'm not walking. He's carrying me on his shoulders.
Well, Professor Swaminathan, you have really missed out the first video of Geeta Iyer, which was on 18th of July 2022. I would send the link. I would send the link to you to have a look at it. You will get to know more about dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, because I can relate to many things that you said, and there's just one comment that I have, and some of the solutions that you found are very relatable. We have done all that, like putting a ticket in his pocket and so forth. One thing I want to say is mental health in general, worldwide, people are, it's misunderstood, and especially in India, people don't, there is a lot of stigma surrounding mental health, and so they don't, so to say that there wasn't that Alzheimer's wasn't present in India is not true. Like my grandmother had dementia, but we did not call it dementia. We did not know it was dementia. So it was not known and we didn't talk about it. And also it was part of our culture. Okay, we are all family, needs to take care of it. We didn't really seek treatment for it, or we didn't go to a doctor for it. I think that was the case. Yeah.
Solunga.
I'm going to say something which is totally different. My mother was 96 and was totally confined to bed. Okay. When I went to see her when she was 93, At that time also she was in bed. She told me, look here, when the youngsters come and see me, they tell me, be happy and enjoy your life. She asked me, how can I be happy or enjoy life at this age? And that too totally confined to bed. I had no answer. This is just an experience which is totally different from the case of dementia, etc. It is also there. Such people, they just don't appreciate the position of the old people who are confined to bed, and they say something which is very strange. I don't know how does it help. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
My mother is 9. I don't know if I understood or the point you are making entirely, but my mother is 93 now. She's completely in bed. She has limited mobility, and she also says, poor the kaya, poor life, I've lived life fully. But she's very limited and in what she can do. She needs help with everything.
Final segment for summary of the talk and proposing word of thanks. Mr. Subramanian, our Secretary Tapovan, joining us from Chennai, I would do the honors. Subramanian, sir, please go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening,
to
sir.
one and all this evening. And this is the second time we are listening to Ms. Geeta Iyer. It has been sharing her personal experiences, which is much more meaningful rather than quoting from others and quoting from the books. And we are thankful to Nirmala Mami for her prayer on Ayyappa. And Subbu, as he introduced, you worked in US, you studied at Michigan, and you came over to India, as you explained. I listened to your last talk as well. You came over and you are finding life to be interesting, and your commitment to your parents is something which we respect, madam. And you said this is the first time you are talking about a subject, and as you were to go through your personal experiences, the lecture was pretty interesting as well as informative. And we should also thank now about Mr. Mani, Mr. Swaminathan, and Mr. Nandakumar, who shared their personal experiences, which strengthened the belief that this is not very uncommon. This has been masquerading in its own way. Probably we didn't seek the professional solution, and it was believed with old age all these things to come. We should also appreciate the whole system. A couple of generations before, there was a large supporting system of a joint family in which one person was to have any problem like this. Others used to spend time, others used to take care of them and make them feel comfortable. The loneliness with which many of the people having that problem do suffer was not there. Many times, the only wish people do express is Kayodiyum, Kalodiyum, Kailasam Kundu Ponunna. One of the prayers we keep having all the time. We remember you said your father's last years and how he behaved and how you need to take care of, and some of them you related this time as well. And we are going through various stages, as we explained, and as we get old, obviously many of the diseases, both mental and physical, do catch up with us also. Our acceptance of old age and abilities and decide what we can do, you stressed, is an important thing which all of us we need to agree. We do appreciate the life of your mother, which you were explaining at length, because she has accepted the ground realities, and she said she is not interested in visiting and going anywhere, and she feels that she has lived a full life, and she still enjoys watching the TV, listening to the Patimandrams, and seeing cricket and other things. This is the way it keeps you engaged. And the surgery part, what you explained, most of the doctors, maybe for want of facilities, for want of experience, they dissuade people who are anywhere close to 90. They advise, let them live a peaceful life, don't disturb them. You also expressed that you have a small doubt when your father went through the surgery under anesthesia, when he came back, whether, though the surgery was successful, whether it left any remnants that affected his brain. No one could answer your question, madam. But, this is over 90, you said it well happens. And we are moving in an era that living up to 90 is not, many people do live with the health care that has been given. And immobility of your mother is something which you need to take care. And she shares with you and always feels happy that you took care of your father very well at the last stages. And you are very comfortable because your father did not like being in a hospital in an ICU with a lot of tubes, and he could have a peaceful end at his house, which is, we need to thank God, as our Subbu was telling, karma is important. Many times we turn what we believe and what we wish over a period of time. And you say you are taking care of your mother by giving her oxygen and nebulization. And we are grateful, I am sure. One of these days, Subbu will organize Dr. Mrs. Rajamayya's lecture, which will help us understand what are the difficulties and how to overcome them so that we can give them a life, rest of the life, whatever they have, with liberty and dignity. And I understand the hospices is not something which is not there. Palliative care is one of the reasons we are not able to afford it. The cost with which this comes associated is very expensive for most of the people, and they don't think it is worthwhile. And the people who are undergoing the difficulty also suggest, please don't do all those things and waste the money or savings what could be there. It could be one of the reasons. Affordability is certainly one of the reasons. And pain management, you said, is poor in India, and giving morphine, which is common in palliative care. Many general physicians or physicians with a lot of experience wouldn't also dare doing. Care beyond cure is what is palliative care, is what you explained. And you said just 2% of the population in India has access to this. I feel this itself could be a big number, contrary to global average of 14%. And I strongly believe a percentage of 26% in Kerala could be very well there, because the pharmaceutical company and healthcare is given much more importance in Kerala in comparison to other states in the country. Maybe reading a book like Being Martyred by Atul Gawande may not be a very pleasant exercise to the people who are in the age group you have been addressing, but it is better to know. And you said that we should probably ensure the quality of life for people. And people who are there, they should feel happy, financially speaking, that they have done what has been wished by the departed soul without having any guilt in their mind. And for that matter, they must be able to provide some direction, either verbally or preferably in written form, so that understanding the mortality, you give direction to the people that what you want to be done, making in the form of a will. What we do in our balance of years that are left is something which we need to take a decision ourselves. And you said your sister, who is in her early 70s, had got her own problem. And you say the way in which you are spending most of your time with your mother, not moving out of Mumbai, I would say you are setting an example to the people whom you are talking to, so that whenever they feel depressed or feel some sort of a motive to provide service to the people, your picture will come to their mind. And preferred place of treatment, types of treatment, not giving what they want, etc., is something what should be.
Oh, sorry. Sir, you are muted, sir. Sir, you are muted. Kindly unmute.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah, please.
Yeah.
Continue.
We don't feel we should be able to make some sort of our wish in the form of saying or writing in the form of a will, so that people who take charge of things are able to discharge or distribute things without any guilt in them. You said your sister is in her early 70s, and she has got some problems. We wish her all the best to have a very nice time, because 70s is not a very big age these days. Preferred the place of treatment, types of treatment, whether they have to have anything is there. Many times the decisions are taken by others and not by the patients, because they are not able to decide what they want. So we need to provide whatever is feasible within our means. And one other thing you said, financial settlement that needs to be done is important. Any big families, they leave things so that the people fight over things and trivial things. They should not be there. And you said again, it was a new topic, but we feel you did an excellent justice to the talk, and we would like to listen more and share as you get more experiences and more information around you to solve problems, or out of the interest you have developed, which you could be taking and collecting with you, you can share, because it could be pretty pertinent to us. Have a nice evening, madam. Thanks a lot to one and all. Bye.
Yes, thank you. I just want to make one correction about the 2% have access, and you said that was significant. It's actually 2% who need it. 2% of the people who need it. So
Okay.
not the population.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Subramanian sir, for your wonderful summation as always, and full of thanks. Thank you, Geeta Iyer, for your valuable time. Thank you, Nirmala Mami, for the prayer. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining the show. The recording of this show will be uploaded on YouTube sometime tomorrow. Kindly link a share button as widely as possible. And that's a wrap up from all of us over here. Until we meet next, here's wishing you all goodbye, good night, and Shubh Ratri.